So quality, like we mentioned yesterday, is meeting your customers' expectations. Similar to other areas, you do planning for it. Then you kind of execute some work related to quality and you control it. The planning piece, again, explains the basis for quality. What is your definition of quality? What are you going to consider high quality, low quality? So it's all about setting expectations, agreeing with the team on certain things. That's your plan or your quality management plan. Managing quality is basically doing things throughout the project to make sure you stick to your plan. And then controlling quality is measuring your deliverables to see how close or far they are from their plan. Right? So one is to set the standard, which is the quality management plan. Number two is to do activities to ensure you're as close as possible to the standard. And number three is to figure out, to validate, are you actually meeting the standard or not? So definition of the quality is meeting customers' what? Expectations. Quality assurance involves maintaining the desired level of quality. So these are activities you do throughout. It could be checkpoints, it could be reminders, it could be putting posters in the hallway saying, hey, wash your hands before you meet your clients or patients or whatever it is, or before you pack the food for people. That's an example of a quality assurance activity. When you go to a food store and you see in the restrooms, it says employees must wash their hands before going back to work. That's an example of a quality assurance activity, that poster that's there. The quality control is actually someone coming from the health department and picking up a sandwich, taking it to their lab and checking if there's any bacteria or, things, viruses or whatever that should not be there. So that's the difference between quality assurance and quality control. And quality planning in this scenario would be the leadership of that fast food chain putting in a document saying our standard is that employees need to wash their hands. The quality assurance is we putting out signs out there for people, and the control is actually inspecting, the food or inspecting the handles that people touch and things like that. So those are the two key things, assurance and control. Control can come in different forms, like auditing, which is a formal process. You bring a team of people in and they inspect things, they review documents, they interview people, and they capture what they see in a formal document. Inspections are more visual, or people taking measurements, things like that. And then we talked about the difference between verification and validation. Who remembers from yesterday the difference between the two?
Verification and validation.
Right, which one has to do making sure we're doing the right way?
Okay, verification is basically getting it like approved by the client, right? And validation is testing if the product is actually working.
Not quite. Not quite. Both are done by the team and could also be done by the client. But what's the major difference? So I see here in the chat, there's a question. All right, we'll get back to this question. But first, what's the difference between verification and validation? Who remembers from yesterday? We said one of them has to do making sure we're building the right thing. We're addressing the right problem in the first place. And that is which one?
Validation.
Validation, right? So is your solution valid in the first place, right? Is your project valid in the first place? So validation is to make sure we're doing the right thing. Verification is to make sure we're doing it correctly. We're doing the right thing in the right way. All right, the question here in the chat is quality assurance, the goal we're trying to reach, and quality control, how we maintain assurance. No, quality control is how we maintain assurance. Not really. So quality assurance is how you maintain your quality standard, right? So the goal is what you define in your quality standard, which is your quality plan, your quality management plan. So your quality management plan is basically a standard. It's what you agree to be good quality, right? Quality assurance are steps to take to make sure you get to that plan. And the control is just to verify if you are actually meeting your plan or not. Did that address your question? Okay. All right. Any other questions on this piece? Okay. So some other things to talk about when it comes to quality, some few concepts here. Obviously, prevention is better than inspection. You don't want to inspect and find defects and then go back and fix them. I mean, you're still going to have to inspect, but the point here is preventing the defect from the first place is obviously a better choice. One, as we mentioned yesterday, the cost of fixing a defect is 10 times the cost in a prior phase. So if you are on your job fair, for example, it's the day of the event and you have a typo in a flyer that you're distributing to people at the event, the cost to fix that is extremely high. You have to trash all these flyers. You might have hundreds or thousands of them, and then have someone work overtime very quickly while the event is going on, fix that, run to Staples, make a large number of copies very quickly at a very high cost, and then bring them over, in their own car at the event, and then start redistributing again. And you've already lost half the event time, for example. So the cost is enormous here. Whereas if you caught this typo when the flyer was being developed 6 weeks ago, it's literally a 2-second change, right? You change that typo and you're done. You haven't even printed them yet. So the cost magnitude here is much less. Gold plating is something that happens when you provide more than what was expected by the customer. And that's not a good thing at all in the world of project management or business in general. Gold plating is really not good for the client nor for the business, because what happens, it confuses the client. It creates confusion about expectations, and it puts the project team under a lot of pressure. So if you promised your client, we're going to give you 4 interviews at the job fair, and as they're entering, you say, today you're going to get 9 interviews, and then they happen to get 7, which is still more than 4, they're going to be disappointed. And you ruined their experience, and now you are also viewed as incompetent in what you are doing. So gold plating is not good. It costs a lot of money, and it causes problems as well as contractual issues and financial issues and all kinds of problems. So when it comes to quality, it is meeting your customer's expectation. It's not exceeding it, and it's not delivering below it. Just in time is a very popular concept in quality. It came out in the 1970s, late 60s, which is a just-in-time delivery of material to your production line. You don't want to bring inventory into your factory or plant and have it sitting there on the dock for weeks. It goes bad, or in storage where you have to pay for space for it. You want to bring in your material, your supplies, use them right away, take out your final product to the market right away, and get it to the customer's hand when they really need it. Not too early. You don't want to stock it on the shelves in the stores, and you don't want it to come late after it has there's a need for it in the market. So just in time is important, and we should not confuse that with being late. It does not mean that you do things last minute. It means you do things just in time at the proper interval. So if your just in time standard is 3 weeks to advertise your job fair, that's when you want the advertisement to go out. You don't want to do it 4 weeks or 5 weeks ahead, because then people might forget about it or becomes redundant noise. And you don't want to do it 2 weeks because now you're late. But just in time in this case would be the 3-week window. Marginal analysis is a study where you figure out, is it worth putting more quality into something, or the benefits of return on investment is gonna not really be realized. So obviously everything has an optimum point, and as project managers and technical people, you want to design for optimum point, because no one is perfect and perfection really can't be achieved. It would be extremely costly. So you want to find the right sweet spot to provide your products. All right, so there was a question in the chat. I think we already addressed this, the difference between planning for quality, quality assurance, and quality control. Again, planning for quality is defining your quality standard. Your quality standard might be 1 typo in every 1,000 words in our emails. That's your standard. The quality assurance is, all right, let's do some activities to ensure we have that level of error, right? Which could be reading, proofreading our emails, doing certain things certain ways. And then quality control is someone coming in, a third party, taking 10 random samples of your email, checking them to see is the error rate more or less than 1 in every 1,000 words. All right. Moving on, we're going to look at some quality tools. There are 4 here, popular ones. The first one is called a fishbone diagram, or cause and effect. We use that to kind of brainstorm why problems might have been occurring. So here in this example at the top right, you see the effect is the part is produced using the wrong size. You know, some plant has a product and, you know, they came out of the production line in the incorrect size. So there could be many reasons. The cause could be these 6 things: the machine itself, the measurement or the tools we're using to do the measurements, the material, the way we were trying to, you know, manufacture this piece, or the factory itself, or the people using these machines. It could be any of these. And then for each one, there could be multiple reasons. And, you know, you can take this diagram and kind of break it out into more details. So we call this a fishbone diagram because it looks like a fishbone. Pareto diagram, which is the one beneath it on the right. Basically, there's a rule. Pareto came up with this idea, which is pretty accurate, that 80% of the problems or issues occur due to 20% of the factors, or 80% of your customers, 20% of your customers bring you in 80% of your revenue, or, you know, 80% of the accidents are caused by 20% of the reasons, and so forth. So here in this example, it shows reasons people have errors with medication. They're different reasons. You can see them on the lower axes on the chart, missing a dose all the way to using an unauthorized drug. But there's 2-3 reasons that are really accounting for 80% of all errors. And that's what a Pareto diagram typically is. So if you take your example, Pareto, and you apply it again in the context, let's say, of your crisis line, what are 80% of the calls, right? They're because of these 2 reasons, homelessness or, you know, suicide. And then all other calls can be lumped up together to be the rest of the population, you know, the other 20% of things, of callers. So that's basically what it is. It helps you focus on what really matters. In this case here, the example we're looking at, we're going to focus on missed dosage. So as a physician or a hospital, I will pay extra attention to give the patients instructions about not missing their dose. But I'm not going to pay the same amount of time telling them to not use an unauthorized drug, because the likelihood of them using an unauthorized drug is very low. We call them the trivial many. There's many of these reasons and they're trivial. Their impact is very low. So that's a Pareto diagram.
Wait, sorry. Yeah, sorry. So Pareto diagram is basically, you know, looking at like the vital few, like the few, like actually like big reasons for like whatever happens, such as like risk, or in this case like quality. So like there's, in this case there's like missed overdose, or like bad internet if we're bringing in the job fair. Then the trivial many are basically many other reasons that could affect quality, but, you know, like you said, they're trivial, they don't really matter, such as like I don't know, people not showing up, or
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in the examples you gave, it's probably going to be switched a bit. So the likelihood of the internet dropping is not as high as people not showing up. So the internet outage would be one of the trivial many, because its frequency of occurrence is low. But people not showing up happens all the time with events, right? So that would be one of the vital few. Another problem could be, for example, people crowding up at a booth if it's physical, you know, and people not being able to talk to the representative and they just give up and walk away. So anyway, depending on whatever we're talking about, things could be different, but you're absolutely right. There's a handful, small quantity of issues that happen a lot, and they account for 80% of the problems. And we call it the 80-20 rule as well. So sometimes you'll hear it called the 80-20 rule, where focus on the 20% that brings you the 80%, right? Focus on the 20% of your donors. You see this is a, you know, a rule of life. Usually any nonprofit, you find 20% of the people, they bring in 80% of the donations. I mean, it could be 60, 70, 80, but that's generally speaking. Or you find 20% of the businesses providing 80% of the products to the local community or the country or the state. Or you find 20% of the good teachers, you know, impacting 80% of the students, and so on. So that's a general rule in life. It's called the 20-80 or 80-20 rule. All right, next one is called flowcharts. These are common. I'm sure you've seen these before. If you have a problem, you can start drafting a flowchart to figure out where things could have gone wrong. Usually these shapes mean something. So a box means it's a process. If it's a decision point, you know, it would be a rhombus. If it's an end result, it would be sort of like a rectangle with curved edges, like the green and the red one at the top and the bottom. So these have, you know, meanings, and the arrows mean certain things, and there's some standards for flow charting. And then the last tool is called a run chart. It's what you expect your results to be and the upper and lower threshold that you can accommodate. If you go beyond that, you're basically not within your quality metrics. So for example, we gave the example of, you mentioned people not showing up, right? So your target could be 50 people at the fair at any given time. Your lower threshold is 30, your upper threshold is, let's say, 80. If you get 85 people, you won't let the 5 extra people in because of, you know, fire code or whatever. So you're going to keep them waiting in a queue at the door. So you don't really want that to happen that much. You want people to come in, spend a certain amount of time and leave, so that others who come in at a different point in time don't have to wait in a queue. If you have people waiting in queue, then you have an outlier, like this circle here. You're above your threshold. At the same time, you don't want, at some point during the fair, you only have 20 people showing up. Then you're below your lower threshold. That means your vendors are underutilized and you're not really efficient. So these are common tools. There's a lot of other cool tools, but these are some that you can use on your projects. And again, you can practice a couple of these today with your team as you go through it. All right, so let's take another 10-minute break. Try to, for your project, come up with one of these tools. Oops, let me go back here to this slide. You can draft it. You can define these thresholds, right? You can come up with some of the risks that you mentioned. You can assume that they turned into problems. So you can make the assumption that the risk is no longer just a risk, but it's actually an issue. As in your workbook, you're going to find 2 tabs, one called risks, one called issues. What's the difference? Risks are events that, should they occur, they result in an issue. They become a problem. Issues are already problems, right? So you can take a couple of your risks that you've identified, turn them into issues that they actually did happen. Issues are very similar to risks. You're going to have a title for it, the date it was reported, who owns it, and the severity, priority, and its status. Did you fix it or not, you know, and so on. That's the bare minimum. You can add more columns to this as needed. But take a couple of issues and then figure out, using one of those tools, how are you going to try to improve the quality and, you know, mitigate those issues using one of these 4 tools. All right. So before we group again in our rooms, any questions? All right, I'm going to put also the link for you guys for this deck in case you need to refer to it. So let me go ahead and do that now. Oops. All right, cool. So this will be here. All right, have fun. I'll jump in, see you all there.
It's a break now, right?
No, we're getting together right now for the quality piece of the project. So I think you're in room 1. So yeah, you can join there. How's it going, guys? Any questions here?
Oh yeah. So I've got one question. What date should I use for the descriptions? Should I use today's date or like a random date?
That will be the date you open these risks.
Okay, so
So it'll be today's date. That's correct.
Yeah.
and
Brother NASA is not in this. How do we contact Brother NASA right now? Like,
I'm here. You have a question?
yeah, like I need to ask Brother NASA about something related to this.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Go ahead. What's your question?
I mean, I was wondering about like Brother NASA explained like this, like he was. Shut up, Zach. Sorry, my little brother he's basically my last brain cell just going through life. Yeah, that was dumb. Anyway, but yeah, so Brother Nasser explained like this method of trying to figure out the severity and like the severity of this. Uh, it was like something about like dividing like the time and
Yeah, multiplying the impact by the likelihood, right? So in the case of quantitative analysis, you multiply the two numbers. In the case of qualitative analysis, like what you guys are doing here, it's going to be a mix of the two. So you can set a standard. You can say, if we have a high impact and a low likelihood, we'll consider the severity to be medium. Or we would assume if anything has a high impact or a high likelihood, we'll let the severity be high. I mean, that's up to you guys to define what that would be. Because remember, this is a qualitative analysis in this case.
Mhm.
qualitative, as in like just determining how it's going to affect the quality. It's not really quantitative
Right.
because that would involve like
Numbers.
precise numbers, which I thought. I mean, you did say that it would involve like a mix of the two because it was supposed
Yeah,
to
so
have.
the example I gave, I had 2 additional columns where I put numbers. But again, you don't have to do that. If you decide to do it, and then in that case, your severity will be the product of the 2 numbers. Okay?
And
But a general rule of thumb that people use, if both impact and likelihood is low, then severity will be low. If impact and likelihood are both orange, meaning they're both medium, then the severity will be medium. If it's low and medium, you can decide to make it either medium or low. And if it's high and low, you can decide to make it medium or high. You know what I mean? So that's a decision that you guys, and that would be in your quality plan or your risk, your risk management plan.
Well, I got a question. What does the left column where it says ID?
Yeah, that's an ID you give to your risk, like a number, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, okay.
And if you want to differentiate between a risk and an issue and a work item, you can give it a prefix like R1, R2, R3.
Okay.
Okay, good. So just, take one of these risks and assume that it did occur and turn it into an issue on the other tab.
Okay.
All right, and then you can work on a mitigation plan using some of those quality techniques we talked about.
I know.
How's it going? You guys have any questions?
Yeah, how exactly do you want us to put the chart in?
Repeat that question again.
How exactly do you want us to put the chart in?
You can use any tool and then just put it in your quality tab.
Okay.
You can use
So
PowerPoint, Google Slide or,
whatever. And what you want us to do.
Take any of your risks and turn them into issues.
Yeah. So we did this, right?
Okay.
And now do we just put it in a chart?
Yeah, so you would go back, you said website crashed, right?
Yeah.
Okay, where's the risk associated with this?
It's here. Website doesn't work.
Okay, so now indeed the website did crash. So you're gonna start the first thing, which is to brainstorm, do a fishbone diagram, right? That's the effect that the site crashed. You can come up with a number of reasons in a fishbone diagram. Then you can take that diagram, put it in your workbook, or each of those reasons can become a new row in your mitigation plan, right? And would go back into your WBS. But first, let's do this one step at a time. Come up with your diagram, identify the potential reasons. And then when you get to the point of fixing those reasons, we can address how to incorporate it into your WBS.
So does each issue get a diagram, or is it all issues get one diagram?
Each issue gets its own diagram because each
Okay.
issue is a separate effect.
So each issue is basically like each diagram is like a mitigation plan for the one specific issue.
That's right.
All right, cool. So let's just say it's like here, and then let's say what's I finished. All right. And then let's just make it a long one. Can I do I can't? Or not like this up. Go like this. And then there's my line. Connect it back here.
I think Google Slides would be probably the easiest.
Google Slides would be easier for you.
Yeah, because it's all lines and boxes.
But just make it. Do you want me to just make it here, or do you want me to like?
No, you can do it separately in your own. All right, good guys. Keep up the work.
Gracias.